for a business owner, work life balance is not an easy feat to achieve. And I think people in industry feel it's even harder to do. But I mean, for business owner, you're technically always on and you're only off if you choose. More reasons not to choose not to be off because you're always trying to focus on that next big idea. You might find yourself waking up at 2 in the morning or just staying up super late to get that next project done or book that next client. So, how do you manage and what are some strategies you employ for yourself?
That's beautiful. I would say when I started my business 2 years ago, 1.5 years ago, I would say I was all in, like it just sucks all your time in there, right? So I did do that. So I would give permission to everyone. Don't beat yourself like when you are at the beginning phases, like you are giving your full on attention there. And as a mom, there's always this mom guilt, right? Oh, I should have paid attention more with the nutrition at home or the studies and whatever responsibilities at home. So when that comes up, I just take note of it so I can just try and address it whenever possible, whether on weekends or a month later or something like that. Just noting it down was very helpful for me in the initial phases. And slowly I noticed that wherever I have a pattern of anxiety, like, oh, I need to achieve this really quick, that's what I had to work on. And really, now I'm at peace that I would definitely take time for myself, whether it's a workout or a walk with my dog or a hike with my family or something. And then business hours is whatever, A to Z or something. I try to just be at peace and not be anxious, like I'm missing out, or like there was thoughts like, oh my God, I have to deal so much at home. If this much pressure was not that, I would be focusing a lot more on business. I don't know how many people can relate to this that I'm saying, but eventually I'm like, if there was no pressure, what am I learning? Like that's an easy path. Like there's nothing to learn. So I'm actually grateful and at peace and working on my anxiety mostly, that I should be doing this much at business or I should be this much doing. But like I said, it is all coming down to figuring out. Don't beat yourself if you give your full attention to your business, at least in the initial phases, and then come to realization, oops, I need to sleep, I need to exercise, I need to also enjoy family time.
Hey, 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 welcome back to RAA Talks. I'm Raihana and I'll be your host. Raihana like rye bread. And today I have joining me is Sophia Antonysamy. Sophia Antonysamy is the heart and voice behind Purple Mindset, a company dedicated to empowering moms through mental wellness. All right, Sophia, I don't know about you, but I am so ready to get started and dive into this conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. I just wanted to see if you had a few words you wanted to say before I ask my first question.
Well, thank you so much. First, I want to begin with my wholehearted gratitude because it's always an honor to share a piece of my journey with you and the audience listening today. So thank you, Raihana.
Absolutely. No, it's my pleasure. And I always say it's an honor for me to have you on the show and every other woman on the show who joins me an ally because you are honoring me with the opportunity to share your story with the world. And I feel that your story is truly inspirational. So thank you for that honor today. And I'm just eager to let listeners hear all about it. So let's start with your transformative journey of parenthood. You mentioned that your work is inspired by your own life. When did you realize that the challenges you faced as a parent were a shared experience that could become a mission to help others?
That's a powerful question. I cannot pinpoint one single day or event that
Mhm.
my transformation began. I would say I used to connect with moms just, as a mom's group and things like that. And as we are venting and joking around, like how difficult with the kids and husbands and just being a woman in general, I realized that we all have shared experiences, whether it comes to shame triggers, self-doubt, second guessing ourselves and just
Mhm.
putting our needs like at the back burner. And when I started feeling more freer after, especially my first book, first self-help book, which opened my eyes, is Dr. Brené Brown's The Power of Vulnerability. And I realized my strength, which I used to think is a weakness. Vulnerability is actually my strength. And when I started navigating my strengths in that area, I realized that it's something that I needed to share it with the world.
That's amazing. You're saying it was a book by Brene Brown, Dr. Brene Brown, or was it some like a video you saw? by her?
Both. The first connection was the audiobook. When my husband was listening, he introduced, "Oh, you might
Mm,
like this book." Kind of. Before that, I might have just, back in our culture, we just focus on academics, at least me,
yeah.
when I was a kid. So I would read whatever was asked me to, whether it's in my master's degree, okay, focus on those kind of books.
Mhm.
But the first introduction to self-help book is through an audiobook of Dr. Brene Brown. Then, of course, I loved her TED Talk when I watched her speak.
Absolutely. No, and that's so interesting. I was asking because I personally heard her vulnerability talk first, and when I heard it, it was back in, if I'm getting the date right, around 2014, and it was an incredible eye opener for me. I think that was the first time when I actually started understanding what does it mean to be Rihanna? Who is Rihanna? And so much happened from that point until 2015. And I could not imagine how much transformation a single being could go through while working, while studying nursing at the same time, and trying to figure out this whole identity piece before you even, talk about marriage and creating a family and everything. And it was huge. And I think her work is very powerful and life changing. So listeners, if you have not gotten a chance to explore Dr. Brene Brown's work, highly recommend you check it out. She's got tons of podcasts, episodes on YouTube, and even books that really can work wonders. So, and you mentioned your culture. So, like this was your first self help book. I don't want to assume anything, but I really would like you to tell me a little bit more about that. What is the culture that you're referring to, and why was self help not even something you would even have considered until your husband recommended it? Because you said it was something related to culture. Would love you to share a little bit more about that.
Yes, back when I was studying, it's all about academics, get good grades. Back in India, I was born
Okay,
in South India, Coimbatore, and grew up in a big city,
got it.
Mumbai. And being an
Okay.
only child,
Uh-huh.
culture conditioning, the element of only child is
Yeah,
all coming together as a unique experience for me.
absolutely.
And I was this good girl saying yes to the culture, parents, society.
Mhm.
And you want me to get good grades? Let me focus on what the schooling and everything. So I just studied math, science, whatever was there in my textbook. And then whether it's master's in business administration, I was still very fascinated to read different books in that area, whether it's marketing
Mhm.
by Philip Kotler, which is again written by an American author. So I would explore a lot of areas. But never ever came across to expand myself because the focus is all about getting good grades. I got married through arranged marriage. So say yes to everything that the culture said and moved to the United States 17 years ago to
Mhm.
Kenosha, Wisconsin.
Wow, that makes so much sense. And it reminds me of how powerful the influence culture has on you, no matter where you grow up. Like, I know in Asian culture, like India and like spanning all the way to China and Vietnam and all, like that overall Asian continent culture is so strong in terms of respect and doing what your parents say and so forth. But it sounds like you never really had this autonomy for making your own choice. When do you think did that come up? Like, I am empowered to make a choice here. When did that actually happen for you?
That I would say after coming to Kenosha, Wisconsin, when I first came, I think I was stripped of all this identity, my MBA, my everything, right? Your friends, family, pretty much nothing. And I have to start all over again. Still trying to figure out what is this husband thing? What is this in-laws thing and marriage thing and all that? So
Yeah.
that made me pause a little bit, which was my turning point. And from there, I would say that my transformation started beginning step by step, something really small. Like I was thinking, like, what do I do now? I can't, whatever is the visa restrictions or things like that. Okay, I need to take a break from my working era. So what do I do? And then I rediscovered that I have a passion for writing, which was there since I was in a third grade, which I never realized or nurtured it. And I just started blogging on a blogspot.com on random things like, okay, let me write about marketing management, something really that I knew. So when I started making those tiny choices as this woman who knows no one in the US except my husband, and
Mhm.
then the tiny steps flowed into when I had my children, I went to a mom's group, and then more expansion, more choices that I could make. My first independent choice was, okay, let me hit the gym. Like, after having two children, I just realized this is something I want to do. So going to the gym at 5 a.m. before my kids wake up. Those were the little choices which built my self trust and led me to who I am today.
Wait a minute. You said something really interesting, and I'm going to see if I can unlock that a little bit more with you together. So you said when you came to Wisconsin, that's when your choice, this idea that I have a choice really opened up. But it didn't sound like you actually activated that power of choice until you had kids, which I heard you say was, I decided I can start going to the gym. I can get a membership. So is that right? Like you didn't really empower yourself to choose until you had children?
I would say yes, because life pushes you. I think it's different for different people, but at least for me, I was this person, like, just to keep the peace, I would just comply and I would
Mhm.
just do everything that was expected again. Even though I'm miles away, I was still following the conditioning to be a good wife and good mom. And
Yeah.
one point, I don't remember the exact date, but I'm just thinking, I'm just surviving, but in a very thin thread or something that which is not something how I want to live. I really want to live fully and happy, especially like you said, as a mama bear, I want to be the best mom for my kids. And if I'm not happy and fulfilled, I would be like snapping or having very less patience, which I caught myself. I'm like, this is not something how I want to live.
Mhm.
And that's when I think the moms group and when I met different culture people giving different inputs was so useful. And
Okay.
then the I can word began for me with the simple step of going to gym.
You know what? That's a great point you brought up because I think it's similar with identity. And when you're going through an identity shift, it doesn't just happen overnight. It takes time. And as somebody who is deeply rooted in this yes ma'am culture, that it's not like you can just undo it all in just a year or a couple months. It takes a lot more time. And I think that it's a testament to the amount of patience that you had with yourself, with your family, with your kids, as you tried to unwind some of these learnings and learn new things about yourself as you try to embrace power of choice. And that's such an important learning because I think even as working moms, we feel like, oh, the culture says you have to get back to your previous body after baby in this many months, but that's not the reality for people. I just saw a post on LinkedIn today that said, I had my first baby when I was in my 40s. And so many people were commenting after that. Like, I had my first baby in my mid 30s, and this lady was labeled as geriatric pregnancy because it was like old woman having a pregnancy. And then she had another baby after that in her mid 40s, and then they removed that label. But it's just so interesting that because of the way we're conditioned, we start putting these undue pressures on ourselves to have things within a expected time. Like you have to have kids before you're 30. You have to figure out your identity in this much time. You have to lose weight in this much time after having a baby. But I think you just proved that wrong. That these kinds of things, these kinds of transformative journeys, they're truly journeys. They're not sprints and they do take time. But I want to give you a little bit of time to comment on any of that as you wish before we move on to our next question.
Absolutely. That's a beautiful point that you just made, Rahana. And I believe, again, adding more to that, everybody's journey is different and powerful. I feel that people just focus on actions, but I focus on intention. Whether you have
Mm,
a child at the age of 25 or 45, it's your, is it coming from fear, insecurity? That's what I started noticing in my patterns, and not the actual action. And yes, every journey is truly, I believe, it's spiritually, it's all like predestined. Like it's going to motivate, it's going to inspire that specific group of people. If I'm starting my business after the age of 40, it is for a reason, even though like I can beat myself like, oh, wish I had did this when I was
yeah,
23 or whatever, right? But it is for a
totally.
good reason and journey, like you rightly said.
Totally, totally. And so I'm a little bit curious on that piece where, want to take you back to that gym story where your kids were still young, you woke up early before they even would wake up to go and do the gym. Talk to me more about that journey of really coming to grace with yourself that I can make choices for myself. And what were some other choices that led you to being more independent that you made even after that decision to go start going to the gym while being a mother at the same time? Because I think that's a huge shift.
Yes, like I said before, it's always those series of events and series of decisions. It could be a smallest decision like, oh, I'm going to break free from my conditioning to cook 3 course, 3 times Indian meals because I am not in India with the facility of extra help or something. So I can learn PB&J from a fellow friend and frozen pizza, again, with an intention because I want to spend with quality time with my kids. So I'm going to do frozen pizza, or I want to spend time resting and writing, fueling myself. So I'm going to do whatever. So I started making these tiny choices when it comes to food and household chores and raising children. When I was reading books related to parenting, I had my own mix of culture as well as whether it's conscious parenting, but also having, I always jokingly say, you can have frozen pizza and golden milk for dinner and you'll be fine. Like you can actually combine the best of everything.
What's
So
golden milk for those who don't know?
yeah, golden milk is an Indian turmeric and black pepper, and sometimes I add honey as well. So it's good for your cold and things like that. So I always say, okay, you had frozen pizza, have some carrots and golden milk, and we are good. We are healthy.
Nice, nice. That's so cool. There you bring up another important point because I think as working moms, we believe we have to do it all. And if you don't do it all, you need to outsource so you can do it all. And there are so many wonderful businesses and resources that want to help you find help in your house, like a cleaner that's going to come to your house every day or every week, and a cook that you can have to help you prepare your meals. And why not even have someone help pack your bags so you can go on travel and you don't have to be the one packing your travel bags and your itineraries and everything. And I think all of that is wonderful, but it might not be a luxury for somebody. It might actually be a luxury for somebody else that they cannot actually afford. And what you did was what I feel is very practical, and it does take extra effort, but it's also very important. And it's something I also imply as a working mom. You said, if I want to spend more time with my kids, I'm not going to put this pressure on myself to cook this 3 course Indian meal, but I'm going to opt for other resources to make sure my family is fed. And that will give me time to spend with them or do something for writing. And I think that's so powerful because sometimes you have to break down your own biases and things that you were taught to do. And like for me, I would never, before I got married, I never really ate processed foods and I was totally against it. And I still am, but I think now I've relaxed the rules on that a little bit. Like, for example, I remember growing up, my parents and my grandma would cook rice every single day. We're not from Indian culture, I should say, by the way. I'm a Caribbean Latina culture. My family is from South America and it's a country called Guyana. So it's like a huge melting pot of cultures. You got people from India, China, Portugal, Africa. And so we just kind of created this own Caribbean Latina culture there. And so, but we cook a lot of rice in our family. I think bread and rice is like a shared food among many cultures. And when I had my baby, we didn't cook. My husband and I like literally survived off of RX bars and soup cans in the first 2 months because that's all that we can manage. And after that, when we still use these, we got some quick cook packets of rice, and I can drop in the show notes for anyone who's interested. They're like $1.50 a pack at Target. And you literally just pop that packet of rice in the microwave for 90 minutes and it's done. And so you have rice for the meal. You don't have to reheat and worry about old food. I don't have to think about the pot overflowing on the stove or extra dishes to clean. But I do that because it gives me more time to spend with my kid. And I'm a homeschooling mom. So it's even more time that's required from me. So I try to find ways like you do to spend less time in the kitchen. And I'm wondering, what are some other techniques that you would recommend to some mothers who might feel so overwhelmed by either the household duties or the cooking or just finding time to put work aside if they want to spend more time with their families, what other tips would you recommend that maybe you have tried or heard from other moms in these support groups you've joined?
Yes, again, like you rightly said, if there is no, it all depends upon if you can afford, then go for,
Yeah.
outsourcing your laundry. And back 17, 15 years ago, yes, I had to just depend on frozen pizza and not able to hire maids and to cleaners or something like that and support systems. So this is where breaking free from conditioning comes. Sometimes we are able to afford, let's say, outsourcing laundry. You can give it to the dry cleaners, or like you said, cleaners coming and helping with cleaning the bathrooms and or the yard work. But we will be beating ourselves like, but I'm staying home, or I just work part time, or I can, even if
Yeah.
I work full time, I can do this on weekends, and I should be doing this. Or worse, I should be involving my kids and family, which is theoretically right. But if it is
Yeah.
making you insane, then go for it and think it as an investment. Whether you outsource a large amount of money or something, think it as a temporary thing too. Like in my own experience, my kids are now high schooler and middle schooler. Yes,
Uh-huh.
I spent a lot of outsourcing when they were really little, but it kind of changes forms as they are growing older. So nothing is like permanent. So just break free from fear and conditioning. Like, and the worst thing is because I moved from India, I'm kind of taking two cultures pressure. I see people, local people are very comfortable with cleaning back in Wisconsin, shoveling the snow or mowing the lawn and things like that, even here. And then I'm carrying two pressures. Well, I need to cook three-course Indian meal and also mow the lawn. That's not going to happen. So I need to outsource something that's not aligning with my true self. Here's where I would encourage moms to break free from fear and conditioning and just be themselves.
And
Yeah.
I'm curious, since you're a mindset coach, and I would love to talk to you more about what that means and what do you do in Purple Mindset as we continue our conversation. But in the initial steps, if somebody is a working mom and they're looking to, or even not a working mom, but they're just like a working woman, and they're looking to break free from these principles that they learned growing up, and you're talking about begin to break free from those, what would you advise them is the first step that they should take, and probably the second step if they're not really sure how to go about that path? Because sometimes when you're not sure, you try and then you have this fear that I'm not going to be able to do it. So you end up reverting back to your default because it was too hard to make the shift. So, what would you recommend to somebody who's interested but not really sure how to start exploring that path of shifting away?
Hmm, that's a powerful question. Again, sharing my own personal story. Before I became this author, I actually started writing on my journal and then blogging. And then if I look back, my Facebook post 10 years ago, so cringe. And like, I just let it out, like, and then I published my book in the year 2019. So I would encourage every mom out there to, whether they like painting or dancing, don't overthink that I need to be this famous painter out there, but start right here in your bedroom, and whatever you can do, start really small and your heart will guide. And the heart of Purple Mindset is, I don't fix anybody. I don't say like, I'm a writer, you need to be writing. It's all about uncovering their personal strengths and personal truths, just removing those layers. Starting small would be the first step. And who doesn't backtrack? I always say, look at the 10-year graph, just like in the stock market. If it's like temporary dips and you're still here, you have still grown. So don't beat yourself. I must have quit something temporarily, but there's a rebound. But again, there are tools and strategies that keeps you going, right? I always believe you need to have self-compassion and feel good to keep going. Nothing, all those inner critic did not help me to grow beyond a certain
Right.
point. So I realized to reach my full potential, self-compassion and smallest step, regardless of how awkward it feels. Like, why do I like this particular field? Like, but it's absolutely perfect for the time that your purpose is going to unfold. Like 20 years ago, not in my wildest dreams, I thought I will be in Seattle or I will be helping moms and individuals with mental wellness. Back then, it was look like you should be doing an MBA. What is psychology? What is, but it all makes sense 10 years, 20 years later when your purpose unfolds.
Absolutely. And sometimes it takes time, as you mentioned earlier in our conversation, that the whole journey of identity and what your purpose is, it started for you when you got married and when you were saying, I realized when I was in third grade, I liked writing. And sometimes that's required to just reflect on, well, hey, mom and dad, what did I enjoy growing up if you're not able to remember, no matter what age you are? Give yourself some time to reflect on those childhood memories, what really made you smile, what was your favorite toy, why, what games did you like to play and why, who did you like playing with, what was your favorite travel experience, even if it was just to the park, what made you light up? And I think that's another great way to start because then you're igniting your intuition and trying to focus on things that are important to you. So, thank you so much for that. And I think it's going to be so helpful for women. How do you feel about kind of transitioning to work life balance at this point?
I would say I love it because the more self compassion I have now, most part, yes, I just catch myself and I am critical, but this my whole journey until this point is now I'm focusing more on my energy that I'm not waiting to feel grateful, confident, or proud of myself when I achieve certain place at
Mhm.
my work. But rather, I just say, "Oh, I'm grateful that I could speak with Raihana today, and I'm grateful I can still, if there's a teenager behavior, I'm grateful that I'm here to guide them, nurture them." And so I would say I'm trying to keep that energy in alignment. So I'm not waiting for some point because that's going to shift anyways.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And for a business owner, work life balance is not an easy feat to achieve. And I think people in industry feel it's even harder to do. But I mean, for business owner, you're technically always on and you're only off if you choose. You might find yourself waking up at 2 in the morning or just staying up super late to get that next project done or book that next client. So, how do you manage that overall life balance with your work? Being a parent, being an entrepreneur, and a wife all at the same time? And what are some strategies you employ for yourself?
That's beautiful. I would say I did when I started my business 2 years ago, 1.5 years ago. I would say I was all in. Like it just sucks all your time in there, right? So I did do that. So I would give permission to everyone. Don't beat yourself like when you are at the beginning phases, like you are giving your full on attention there. And as a mom, there's always this mom guilt, right? Oh, I should have paid attention more with the nutrition at home or the studies and whatever responsibilities at home. So when that comes up, I just take note of it so I can just try and address it whenever possible, whether on weekends or a month later or something like that. Just noting it down was very helpful for me in the initial phases. And slowly I noticed that wherever I have a pattern of anxiety, like, oh, I need to achieve this really quick, that's what I had
Yeah.
to work on. And really, now I'm at peace that I would definitely take time for myself, whether it's a workout or a walk with my dog or a hike with my family or something. And then business hours is whatever, A to Z or something. I try to just be at peace and not be anxious, like I'm missing out, or like there was thoughts like, oh my God, I have to deal so much at home. If this much pressure was not that, I would be focusing a lot more on business. I don't know how many people can relate to this that I'm saying,
Mhm.
but eventually I'm like, but if there was no pressure, what am I learning? Like that's an easy path. Like there's nothing to learn. So I'm
Mhm.
actually grateful and at peace and working on my anxiety mostly that I should be doing this much at business or I should be this much doing. But like I said, it is all coming down to figuring out. Don't beat yourself if you give your full attention to your business, at least in the initial phases, and then come to realization. Oops, I need to sleep. I need to exercise. I need to also enjoy family time.
Absolutely. And I think what you're saying, it sounds like you had to determine like where do my values fall? Like I want to make sure I can give time for my kids to not just be with them in the house, but do other things with them. And you kind of let your business hours ebb and flow. Like it doesn't sound like it's fixed for you, but you just kind of adjust based on what your family needs are. But at the same time, business might be a little bit more demanding on sometimes. And I'm curious, how are you managing that mom guilt? So you talked about that it might show up sometimes, like if you need to give more time to the business. How do you manage that mom guilt? And I'm wondering if you can share more about like the mindset shift, especially around that don't beat yourself up. Well, how do you not do that if you are doing that because you feel guilty?
Yes, it takes practice. Repetition, our brain is wonderful that once you repeat certain things, you get better at it. So yes, I've been repeating feeling guilty for a very long time. So it was a very automated response like, oh my gosh, I didn't do this today. I'm feeling guilty. But again, if I just try to journal it down to the value I am missing out of something. So that's a healthy way of processing guilt. Like Dr. Brene Brown says, like, work on guilt is good. Like it says what you want to do and what you didn't do, kind of, but work on your shame trigger. Like, okay, I didn't do this, so I'm a bad mom is something I need to, avoid. Again, asking yourself those right questions. What am I valuing here? What value am I missing out? And again, asking another powerful question: what is my priority? What matters to me the most? At the end of the day, did I do what mattered to me the most? If the answer is like yes, then just give yourself a high five. And if you thought like you just followed culture and followed somebody else's advice, then reset tomorrow. So ask yourself questions.
I'm going to ask you a hard question,
Okay.
and it might be a hard question for some listeners to deal with. But on that note, what you said, what did I do today? And did I do something that was really important to me? So you're a working mom, and let's say, you know, whether you like it or not, what's really important to you is to work. And you spent 90% of your day today working, and you didn't spend that much time with your family. But again, what you said was if you spent your time according to what's important to you, then kind of drop the guilt. But you are feeling that guilt because you didn't spend time with your family, right? Even though the work was important to you. So, how do you manage that situation?
That
Because
is
technically you're doing the right thing, right? Because if your value is work, then why is that guilt coming up and how do you deal with that and not feel bad about it?
Yes, totally. Because value is not just one. We value work, we value health, we value family time, we value relationships. So that's where, like, when we feel guilty. And I always recommend don't shoo it away. Sit with it. If you have a good friend, share with them so you don't feel alone that you're the only one feeling guilty. And I would recommend that you sit with your guilt, don't shoo it away, and write down those values that's coming up to you. Yes, I do value my work. I love my business, but at the same time, I wish I had spent more time with my children and with my husband or with my friends. Mel Robbins says that your emotion, it just stays 90 seconds if you actually sit with it and not fuel it with more inner critic. The problem for me came not because of the guilt emotion alone. The problem came when I was adding more to it. Let's say, in your example, 90% of my time I spent on work. I'm feeling guilty. That's not that bad. You just sit with it. Yes, I know I value my time to spend time with my family as well. I didn't do that for the past 1 week. And I sit with it. Then I come up with a solution. But rather, if I add more to it, like, I'm such a bad mom. I never get anything right. Either I work or I just focus at home. I cannot do it all like how other women do. These extra layers was horrible for me, was harmful for me. So I would say guilt is not that bad. Is just sit with it, journal it, cry it out, share it with a good friend or a professional, and you go through it.
I would always say coach. I heard you say friend a couple times, but I think friends can sometimes be dangerous in these situations, especially if you're talking about guilt and these extra layers, because they can either take you in either polar direction. And that can lead you down a path that you might not be comfortable with in the long term. So I think, yes, initially, if that's all that you have, then definitely utilize your resources, but remember to keep their advice at bay and really process what your friend is saying and then come back to your values and reflect on what they said and see how that sits with you because that unbiased perspective you get from a coach can just work wonders. And for me personally, for example, like and thank you so much for sharing that. And I think it's important that you were saying like reflect and the guilt is not bad. So I just wanted to share really quick about something that happened with me. I've been late a lot my whole life actually. But this past week I've been feeling exceptionally guilty about being late. And then it came to, well, I'm always late. and I cried about it, that I'm never going to change, that no matter what I do, I'm late. And it didn't help when I became a mother because then, and so I felt a heavy guilt today this week. And and I love how you said that the guilt is not bad. It's the layers you add onto it. And I think what I felt when you were saying that was, well, hey, that guilt is a reminder to me that I'm not okay with this. I'm not okay with late. And I realized when I was reflecting, me saying I'm late, even in casual conversation to my family, is reinforcing that this is who I am.
Yeah.
And I need to remove that from my vocabulary. And I think words are so important because the words you speak and that you tell yourselves in your head significantly impact your behavior and your ways of being and your beliefs about yourself. And so for me now, I feel like, okay, that guilt, when I'm reflecting on what you're saying, is okay, I understand from that guilt, this is not who I want to be. But now what you said afterwards was, now think about a solution. So for solution for me is like, figure out, okay, if I'm over optimistic about how much time I'll need, then add another 10 or 20 minutes, even though I feel like, well, that's way too much time. I could use that time for something else. But just do it anyway, for example. And that would be a solution for me. So I love how you're like, use the guilt as a point of reflection and add on a solution. But I wanted to give you some time to comment if you wanted to say anything else on this topic right here.
No, I totally agree how you really framed it with your own example of those added layer. Like I'm always late. The behavior when it became like a character flaw became really heavy. So guilt is not all that bad when we actually, and the power of words. Again, I want to reinforce, like, instead of saying I have to, I change to I get to. I have to cook or I get to cook. I have to wake up early in the morning to record a podcast interview. No, I get to and enjoy and record this interview. So, the power of words, it our subconscious really hears us, and it's very important to tell a very nice story so we can keep going and just unlock our full potential.
Absolutely. And speaking of unlock full potential, that was a great transition to talking about a little bit imposter syndrome. And so, imposter syndrome, as we both know, is very common for many of us, especially as we take on new roles like being a parent and an entrepreneur. And for you, those kind of happen at the same time. What does imposter syndrome feel like for you? And what are some practical strategies you've used or taught to help women overcome it?
Mm, beautiful. I have, I would say in the past, I had these imposter syndrome. Probably it might come here and there. And I've seen mostly women, my clients, facing the same struggles. In my own personal story, yes, it started with like, who am I to help people with mental wellness? I have an MBA degree. I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist. And what am I doing here? Those kind of imposter syndrome. But again, just like guilt, I started going beneath the layers. What skills am I feeling that I'm not confident enough? Let's say I was not confident enough when it comes to speaking on stage, then I am going towards in that direction and get trained in public speaking. Join Toastmasters, join a speaking course or something. And whether I'm writing a book, then that's the skill I'm learning. And so imposter syndrome is also telling you that you're not confident in certain areas. So go take actions towards in that direction to build those skills. And again, beyond that, if it's just a habit, like after doing everything, or even in the process, we are still thinking like, okay, I'm doing this course, but still I'm not good enough speaker. And that's when you need to realize that's your pattern to put yourself down. You have been practicing, but it's now you can change your wording. Yes, Ross, I'm becoming a better person when it comes to speaking, and I'm grateful. Imposter syndrome can be handled with two powerful tools, which is taking action and gratitude for the process that we are in.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I think that it's so important to what you just said about imposter syndrome is another signal, just like guilt, that it helps you understand an area or a skill that you're not confident in. So instead of feeling like you can't, we'll focus on what you can do about it. and to build that confidence and learn. Something simple as that is what we're learning. And we literally learn every single thing. That's how we are able to function in the world. So you have to learn what it is that you're not confident in order to build confidence in it. So thank you for sharing that. And I wanted to add a little bit more for my own personal coaching journey. Just a few months ago, I was working with my coach and I was facing imposter syndrome and I was feeling I can't help working moms. Like I'm still trying to figure it out on my own. Like I just feel like giving up and I beat myself all the time. And we what we discovered with my coach was, okay, why do I beat myself up? Why do I have an easier time putting myself down than lifting myself up? And I'm doing it to myself. It's not anybody doing it to me. It's not somebody saying, I don't trust your work or no, I don't think you're gonna the right coach for me or anything like that. It's all me that's telling myself that. And you know what's so funny? And this is why I say it's so important to work with a coach. Because if I worked with a friend, they'd be like, it's okay, just keep trying. You got it. You got this, girl. Like you're so confident, you're so bold and brave, and you have so many experiences, you're gonna change the world. I believe that. I will change the world. But here's the thing. I learned in my coaching session I beat myself up more than I lift myself because I'm so afraid of what the other side looks like.
That is a
I,
powerful statement.
I never would have understood that. And it's not that my coach told me that. It was the conversation we had that enlightened me about that insight. And I said it. I ended up saying these exact words. I got it. I am so good at beating myself up because I'm so used to living in a cage. And it's similar to that culture thing you were talking about. Yes, ma'am. I'll do what I'm told. I don't make my own decisions. I follow orders. You know, it's all about not empowering yourself to choose and knowing what failure might feel like if you choose something that didn't lead to an outcome, not what you didn't want. Well, no, let me rephrase that. It's failure is might be perceived as, oh, it didn't go the right way. There is no right or wrong way. You just didn't get the outcome you wanted. And if that happened, it's okay. But nobody teaches you how to be okay when that happens. Rather, we just get scared, we go and hide, and we go back to our default because it's safe, it's comfortable. And guess what? You just keep on that path of your default until you decide I'm going to do something different again and try to learn how to be okay with whatever the outcome is when I don't like it. So I came up with this phrase that I beat myself up because I'm so used to living in a cage. I don't know how to live free. And I'm too
Mm.
scared to learn how to live free. And that resonated with me so much because I had this affection for birds when I was a kid. I remember seeing a bird, like a wild bird, just got hurt. One of those little sparrows, it got hurt. It was flooding around in our porch. And I remember telling, there's a cat that's going to come and eat it if we don't help it. And I was only 13. And I didn't know what we were doing. So like, I'll go get a basket. I'll get a basket. And we put it in a basket and put it in a plastic bag to contain it. So and lifted it up high. And then my dad's like, well, let's go get a cage. Let's get a cage to protect it. And it was so scared. It didn't know what to do. The mother eventually came and was looking for it. And we just put the cage outside in the backyard. And the mother came and gave it worms and everything. And guess what? One day God sent wind and the whole cage fell down. All the bird food fell down. And that bird just was gone, and I thought a cat came and ate it, just like when we were trying to help it. And you know what? I would sit in my sister's room, and I kid you not, for the next 2 weeks, a little bird looked just like that one would come and sit on the window and look right in at me for 2 weeks, every single day. And I believe, even to this day, it was the same bird. That it didn't die, the cat didn't eat it, but somehow it was free again. And now that I say that example, it reminds me of like sometimes you might even put your own cages up and you need a bigger force to knock it down for you to help you to learn how to live free. And for me, that's my faith. You know, I can't get myself out of my own cage. I can't learn to live free on my own. I got to depend on my faith here. But for listeners, you got to figure out what's that force for you. You really need to know what's that force for you to get you out of your own comfort zone to experience those unknowns as you're exploring how to leave this imposter syndrome and be more confident. That's at least my tip. And Sophia, I wanted to leave commentary area for you if you want to say something related to that and add anything as well.
That's beautiful and powerful at the same time. I'm so glad I could hear that today. And
Yeah.
I always feel that disruption is not destruction. It's
Ooh,
basically
that's good.
evolution, right? And so with that mindset, like you rightly said, you touched so many points. I'll try and
Yeah.
touch the coach, the aspect of coach, which is what I also have benefited from mental health professional more than
Yeah.
friends, because friends are limited to their own personal experiences
Yeah.
and give advices based on their limited experiences. And of
Uh-huh.
course, they're afraid, they don't want to hurt you, or sometimes they might even hurt you because they are talking from their own insecurities. So it could be either way.
Absolutely.
But like you said, when a conversation with a professional, when they're asking powerful questions and you are coming up with your own inner intelligence mantra, that's why I find affirmations a little level one, because the one that you brought it up, like the it's so specific with the birds and the cage, and you tell yourself
Mhm.
that you are still in a cage is so personal to you. I don't
Yeah.
think affirmation like I'm amazing, I'm beautiful will do that kind of magic compared to what you just
Mm-mm.
framed from your own inner intelligence. I started realizing that even recently, everything is so connected to personal story. Like when it comes to having this pattern of being in a cage, I could relate to when it comes to pattern of feeling hyper vigilant all the time, like what is going to go wrong next, even if everything is going fine. That used to be my
Absolutely.
mindset. And to come out of it, I was trying different affirmations like, I am safe now. I know that happened 10 years, 25 years ago, but I'm safe. Okay, great. Level one, I'm moving. But very specific. It's kind of interesting and amusing at the same time. We went to this Japan trip during our summer break, and I felt safe. I felt peace. No bad experience, nothing for the whole 2 weeks. I felt how safe looks like, how peace looks like,
Mm.
feels like in my body. And so I came up with my own mantra. If I feel a little anxious or something's going to go wrong, that pattern crops up, I tell myself everything will be fine, just like in Japan.
That's so nice. What made you feel safe? I'm curious. What made you feel safe when you were in Japan for those 2 weeks?
Just people were so nice. I mean, I come from India where you have to be conscious about certain little things, and there, as a mama bear, my kids were treated well. I was treated well with respect, and nobody stole my purse or whatever. Right? Just you can just walk, and no, and people are very conscious to even like little things. They put their backpacks in their front so they don't bump you in the crowded trains. They're so
Wow.
conscious about not troubling other people. They apologize profusely for pressing the elevator up to the basement when we were supposed to go up. Like just that care and love and safety and everything going well, even though I was super alert, like I'm going to a country I don't know the language and figure out train system, and but just that experience, like, now I can put my guards down. And so it's that feeling.
That's very interesting. You just said you're going to a country you don't know the language. The first thing that comes to mind for me is that's a big unknown. And usually when you think about unknowns, you get fear developing. But you had the opposite developing, the stark opposite, peace. So how did that peace begin to emerge for you as you were experiencing this unknown? You've never been there before, you don't know the language. It's quite frankly, it's very easy to get kidnapped in a country like that. Not like Japan, but I mean like in general, it happens
Right.
in certain parts of the world when you don't know the language and people take advantage of that. And I think you're very lucky and perhaps Japan is not like that, but I think I would be afraid of something like that for me personally. But how did that piece emerge for you with all these other unknowns, being in an unknown territory, don't really know how to navigate the place because you don't know the language, you don't know the people, you don't know what to expect. Yet this happened. How did that happen for you?
Hmm. I started with nervousness and fear, overly preparing and things like that. But once I landed there, it sounds funny, but if I'm not getting kidnapped and not getting lost, and if I'm getting water when I wanted to, like simple things. Okay, I didn't pack enough snack or water, but there is. Let's say there's water, there's a vending machine that's affordable. Like, you just don't have to plan anything and you just have to go with the flow, and you're still not starving, or your family's doing fine because they are being well fed or whatever. That experience, that me without doing anything, without planning, which I do all the time as a mom, like you'll see my whole backpack of wipes, and like, even now my kids are like, oh, I need to have goldfish crackers or ask them to pack or whatever, like just being this overly prepared. And I prepared, but once I went there, I just stopped preparing, and everything was just, I felt it fell at the right place and right time. And that was the peace that I was experiencing. I don't have to do anything and I can still be safe and be provided and things like that.
I'm going to say something that's going to summarize what you just said, and I want to see how it lands with you when I say it. When you stopped preparing, you started to trust yourself.
That's powerful. That's what happened. Yes.
Is that true for you?
Yes. Probably that's what I might have looked like, this perfect person. Like, oh, wow. Like many people, oh, Sophia has everything. Oh, she has the wipes, she has the whatever, like the microwave in her backpack or whatever.
I'd probably get one of those if they haven't.
But I was trusting myself, and that was the beautiful feeling, the self-trust. I'm trusting myself now.
How do you let go of the guilt? How do you just kind of focus on the trigger without judgment? I think, as you were saying, as we're growing up, everything's connected. Like with you, the writing, with me, the birds, and those experience have powerful insights if we trust ourselves to unlock them. And I think trust is such a strong and important word for us to connect with who we are as we're exploring our identity as a woman, as a married person, or wherever you are in the stage of your life. Even as a grandparent, I think it's so powerful, and we don't employ ourselves enough to trust ourselves. And one thing that you unlocked here today was, when I didn't prepare, peace emerged. And that happened because you trusted yourself. Whatever happens, it's okay. If that, whatever the outcome is, it's okay. But if you think about it, when I was just talking about outcomes, right? That if the outcome is not what you want, it's not wrong. It's okay. But how do you be okay with it? I think it's all connected to what you're saying too, that if you prepare, you expect a specific outcome. But if you don't prepare, well, guess what? You don't know what the outcome is going to be. And so then you're allowing yourself to automatically be at peace with whatever it is because you didn't plan for one. And then you can trust yourself to navigate that path because you didn't prepare for whatever path you're going to experience. And if it doesn't go the way you want, then you feel like, oh, well, how do I trust myself now? It didn't go the way I wanted, and I thought I knew what was going to happen. And so it's amazing how our minds work, how our hearts are connected to our beliefs, and that how everything just works in unison in a comprehensive way when we really don't think about it. Like, I didn't think about it that deeply until we had this conversation, and I love these conversations because it gives me time to reflect in real time. When you don't prepare, you learn to trust yourself. I think that was a very powerful takeaway from this conversation.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I always say silence keeps us stuck, but storytelling unlocks our potential and
Mm.
freedom. So I'm actually grateful that we are having this live conversation, helping not only us, but also people listening. I'm sure some one or many things they would resonate. Yes, so that would be my takeaway.
You and I are just unlocking so many quotes. I'm like making little notes here on the side with disruption does not equal destruction and silence makes you stuck, stories unlocked. Like, this is totally going on our swag in the RAA Talks shop soon, y'all. So make sure you grab those when they're available. Let's take it back to identity a little bit. So as a woman's role expands, as we talked about the many roles, you become a partner, you become a parent, and then a grandparent, and even an entrepreneur and professional. Her sense of identity can feel fractured. How did you maintain or redefine your own sense of identity outside of those roles as a mother and entrepreneur?
That's powerful because we can get stuck into our roles as our identity. I recently asked myself, who am I if I strip off my role as a mom, coach, my name even? And so those kind of powerful questions helped me identify the faces or the qualities in me. But also, I'm thankful for the roles, which is also helping me uncover. Like when I became a parent, I didn't realize the amount of compassion and empathy that I have it in me. When I became a dog mom, the other side of unconditional love part of me got activated. Now, I think if I see myself before my experiences, so let's say 10 years, 20 years before, all these experiences added these layers of me. Yes, I am strong, courageous, but also I'm funny and enthusiastic. I'm loud, but also I'm soft spoken. So it's just an expansion of your identity, but again, not very attached to the roles. So you're not feeling completely lost when when your kids grow up. Okay, now what? There is an identity shift there as a mom, or when you lose a job, there is an identity crisis there. But again, just asking that powerful question, who am I becoming in the midst of the storm?
Even outside of my name, who am I? It made me realize, yes, your name is a label. It was given to you, just like the role of a marketer was given to you. And that name can have so much attachment, so many memories attached to it that can either push you down or open you up depending on what kind of memory or experience you had growing up and how that name was used, the tone it was spoken in, whether your full name was used for certain situations or your nickname was used in other situations, etc. I think it has such a big impact on when you're thinking about who are you. So I'll ask you, Sophia, aside from your name, being a coach, an author, a mother, a wife, and as your name, who are you?
That's a powerful question, which I'm still journaling a lot, but I would just share the first line from my journal that I'm a visionary who wants this world, especially moms and women, to be happy and unstoppable.
There who wants women and moms to be happy and unstoppable. What does it mean to be a visionary?
Visionary because it gives me this freedom to evolve. It's not very fixated. If I define myself as a coach and a founder and even my name, it kind of somewhere limits to it puts certain limits. But a visionary is evolving. 5 years ago, I was still a visionary. Might be I'm just a newbie in the coaching industry today. As a visionary, get an opportunity to speak on stage, to speak on podcasts and radio show. And but again, 5 years later, I might be doing something else for the same vision. So this gives me, it's like a waterfall, a river where there is a freedom of flow.
I love that. Visionaire, freedom of flow. What a wonderful choice of words. And they have so much meaning to them. Sophia, I know we've unlocked so many insights together, and it's been a gift to explore this with you: identity, belonging, motherhood, entrepreneurship, imposter syndrome, dealing with guilt. I love that we brought in some really cool authors as well and kind of dive deep into some of those topics they specialize in. And these insights we brought out together were not just empowering, but they are a guide for navigating the most challenging and rewarding parts of life. And I just want to sincerely thank you for sharing your authentic journey and expertise with us today, especially around mindset shifts and how to start navigating, unlearning what you've learned to really experience who you truly are beyond your name and all the roles that you hold. For our listeners who want to learn more about you and purple mindset, what's the best way for them to do that?
If they want more motivational little tidbits, then The Purple Mindset is my Instagram page. Or if
Okay.
they just want to book a strategy call to uncover where they feel stuck or just want to move forward, then go ahead and book your appointment on my website, thepurplemindset.com.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I'll drop that in the show notes. And listeners, I think you've already attuned to what I was saying, that we're at the time of the end of our time together today. But before you go, be sure to subscribe to this podcast. Give me a follow on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube to catch more inspiring stories like this one on RAW Talks. And if you have any requests for future topics or speakers, send us an email at info@rawcoaching.com and I'll drop that in the show notes. See you next time.